Hello, all you beautiful gamers out there. It is I, Totem Lord.
And it is I, Lord of the Mark.
And today, instead of doing a physical review on a video game, I wanted to look inside of a deep forgotten rumor back in the days of the 90s. I am talking about Shaq Fu.
The legend.
The legend. Now, legend doesn't necessarily mean something good, but growing up, I always heard that like this is like the worst game of all time. And recently, I came across a friend let me try it, and I hunted down a copy. Take that, whoever it is that's burning them all. And instead decided to delve into it and find out, is this indeed one of the worst games ever? I don't know, but we researched it, we checked it out, we had our pros look into it, test play it, and, well, this was not without its own strifes and merits. I don't think that's a good way to put it, but anyway, we're going to keep that in the video.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. It's a mixed bag like everything else in life.
Yes. But yes, getting this game here today was no easy task. Let's flip to the flashback, shall we?
Lord Totem, this little charade ends here. Do not defy the council, rebel. This is your last chance.
Please don't defy the council again, Lord Totem.
I will do what I must, my lords. The internet's already given its opinion on this game. It's evil. In my opinion, the internet is evil. Well, then you are lost! Actually, he's not wrong. Shut up!
Regardless, nothing can change the fact that I now absolutely own this game.
Only a traitor deals in absolutes. I suppose I will do what I must.
As will I.
My flipping power has doubled since last we fought.
Good. Double the pride, twice the fall. My Shaq Fu skills will crush you all. So yeah, that happened. Went to great lengths to get this game here today. But if we're going to talk about this, let's talk about the first thing that you see, the graphics. What are your thoughts on the graphics?
I think that it depends on what system you play it on. The two main systems, even though it did have a Game Boy version and a Game Gear version, I expect those graphics to be noticeably and understandably cruel. We're talking about 8-bit versus 16-bit. But I would argue that it's one of the few fighting games, or one of the few multi-system games, that it actually looks better on the Genesis than it does on the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo graphics are fuzzy, the sprites are way too big, and oddly enough, it's much tighter in the Genesis. Again, for some reason, but we should get in this part in gameplay, it's a lot more fluid.
That was something I was really shocked about. I didn't play the Super Nintendo version, but I did play the Genesis. Both when I tried it and then when I went out and hunted down. This is the only copy I could find. So, but yeah, the graphics were. I thought they'd be absolute garbage. But yeah, the character sprites had surprisingly fluid motion. They were pretty good. Even down to Shaq's little victory shuffle that he does. As funny as goofy as that was, it was well animated.
It was. I was talking to Totem Lord here, and I did say before when we were discussing this video that it reminded me a lot, and please, people that love this game, I understand if you get crazy about it, it was reminiscent graphically of Eternal Warriors, which is a legendary Genesis fighter that was made just for the Genesis. But in terms of the sprites and the movement, it is reminiscent of that. That's where the comparison ends, though.
But yeah, graphics wise, it was definitely not the worst game ever.
No.
I mean, like, the animations were good. What was it? You had different layers to each background too, and certain parts of the background moved. I keep saying background. Make this video a drinking game. How many times did I say background? But no, like, different things, they moved. Like, there's a faucet on one of them that had flowing water. What is it? The water crashes against a cliff on a...
I could argue there are many cruder games that the Genesis and the Super Nintendo did. I mean, even some of the SNK ports, which are, well, legendary, like Fatal Fury and World Heroes, most notably, the original World Heroes, it looks terrible in my opinion. I know people are going to get mad at me about that, but sorry, graphically this one has to be a little slicker.
Yeah, so even just graphic-wise, this was not the most terrible game ever. Let's move on to sound. I'll lead off on this part. The sound, being on the Genesis, like I said, I didn't play the Super Nintendo version. I expected, like the typical Sega, like the voiceovers are like just, and they're kind of horrible, but they left that out. I don't know if the Super Nintendo had voices, but
no, they did not.
yeah. But honestly, the music was pretty mediocre. It wasn't like anything offensive. It wasn't anything memorable, but it was nothing that that made me want to like turn off the sound or anything.
Yeah, it was typical Genesis music. There's certain beats and certain sound effects that are, and you can tell this was programmed with the Genesis graphic engine in mind, as well as the sound effects, because you get the same effects and the same sound on the Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo is capable of way better sound of, in music than the Genesis, in my opinion. People will argue with me on that too, but okay. But I'm telling you, it's definitely taking its cue from the Genesis translation.
So yeah, sound-wise, it was definitely not the worst game ever, or even one of the worst.
No.
It was just plain bland, but it did its job, really. Now for my personal favorite, the story. The story in Shaq Fu is amazing. Shaq is doing a charity basketball game in some Asian country. I probably should have studied that. But anyway, it's in like China or something, and he goes into a little pawn shop, and he's talking to this old man. And the old man tells him that he has to save this young boy, Nezu, and tells him to go into a portal that's really just a door with a curtain behind it. It just looks shady.
Yeah. It's pure 90s video game goodness there, guys.
It basically, that's the impression I got. I don't really know why it stands out as completely offensive. Yeah, it's wild, it's out there, but there are other games that just have ridiculous stories, or no story at all, really. There's like some games that don't even set up a story, like Mario. Does anybody really give a crap about the story there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when you take the story for what it is, it's meant to be a promotional vehicle for Shaquille O'Neal. Compare it to Kazam, the movie. Trust me, it comes out ahead. So, I mean, Shaq just playing himself and being able to do martial arts compared to him being a genie. Yeah, I guess it's to what your taste is. I personally think I've seen way worse stories. It's just very derivative. That's the worst sin I can think of for it.
Oh, yes. Sticking on the story, though, one of my favorite things was all the so-called trash talk that happens after the battles. Even beforehand, when Shaq meets the characters, I feel that he might have gotten farther in the game if he had not talked complete crap to everybody while inquiring about Nezu. Like one of them, he insults the voodoo girl, and that's actually what it instigates the fight. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you ever watch a martial arts movie from any era, really, that's usually what starts it, is horrible trash talk or some inadvertent cruelty or just people mocking each other out. So, again, it's paying attention to all the tropes.
I think, like, if this was, like, a real thing, I think Shaq Fu just went in just a little too hard, He just got way too into that whole, let's save Nezu. At least that's my thought. Because, yeah, I feel like Shaq is responsible for 90% of the fights on that game.
Which, is it that far cry from real life? Perhaps not. Perhaps not. Sorry, Shaq. We're actually defending your game, believe it or not.
So far in any of these categories, I do not see this as the worst game ever. Let's move on to gameplay. Would you like to lead off on gameplay?
Yeah. Again, it's pretty much echoes what we've been talking about, which is a concentrated mediocre. There's good things about it. There's some relatively decent attacks, but it's derivative. The combo system is flawed. But possible. Let's see what else. There are certain the balance is way off in terms of power of characters. Oddly enough, the worst character, in my opinion, in the whole game is Shaq himself. And there are other characters, minor ones, like there's an alien character and a martial arts character, a sensei and an energy-based character, and so forth and so on. And Shaq stands as the king of the heap. So it's okay. It's just a very by the numbers, below par fighter in terms of gameplay.
Yeah. Character-wise, I thought it actually had a pretty interesting cast. I mean, none of them meshed together at all. But going back to the whole, it's a '90s game. You know, I mean, we had a mummy, we had we had Shaq, which is probably the most out of place character in the whole game. We had a cyborg that's called the Colonel, and then for who knows what reason, we have this guy who looks like he's a construction worker called Diesel, and it looks like he does drugs and push-ups all day.
Yeah, he looks like a guy that tried out for Streets of Rage. Didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah, he's a Streets of Rage, you know, hack off.
Yeah. He also got a demon character named Orok, who actually is a surprisingly decent fighter.
Yeah, you're kicking butt with him.
Yeah, oddly enough. You know, and there is, like I said, there's a really cool energy-based character who looks a little bit like I'm going to geek out on you guys here, the Inhuman Sprite, or rather the Eternal Sprite, apologies. Multiple energy attacks. Again, is a little something for everybody's taste, but they're not developed and they don't have moves enough with any real depth to them. So.
Yeah, that's another thing was the special moves. Actually, I'm going to say a positive really quick right here. One thing that's cool, I didn't get the book with it, so I had no idea how to do any of the moves. I didn't look them up or nothing. But anytime you lose a match, it actually tells you how to do one of the special moves. I thought that was actually a really cool touch. You play Street Fighter and get your butt kicked, they ain't going to tell you anything. You pop in another quarter, you're going to give them more money.
And again, I got it for Eternal Champions. They did that too. If you lose the game, they'll give you, like, if you're lucky and you look really quick, they'll give you a down forward and back for like a special move on Eternal Champions. They do that with this game too. I'm willing to bet that the development team came from Eternal Champions or went on, most likely, to Eternal Champions and perfected it. So, yeah, that is a pretty nice feature to it. It is trying to help that a little bit.
Yeah. Another positive I found about the game, which I wasn't looking for positives when I was playing this game, I was expecting the worst game ever. But one thing that's really cool, Shaq Fu being a fighter, I'd played other fighters before, but you play games like Mortal Kombat 2 sticks out in my mind the most, where you beat one player and then the next match you get your ass completely creamed. It is just awful. Like, I remember because I played Mortal Kombat 2 to death, and I thought I was pretty decent at it. But seriously, the second or third match,
yeah, it's typical. Yeah, it's got a gentler learning curve than say Mortal Kombat or even Street Fighter on a medium level.
Yeah.
Usually, yeah, within about the third character, either you're really decent, you're fluid enough to beat the computer, or you get smashed. You get a lot of perfect matches against you and stuff, especially in, you know, I know there are people that argue with me with this, but yeah, it's definitely gentler with you, depending on the character.
Yeah.
But, go on, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to interject and say, I felt like with Shaq Fu, I could actually, like, if I actually put time into it, I could actually progress and get better, and the game would actually, you know, would allow you to, instead of just making you stuck against the wall and waste all your credits and get frustrated.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, it gives you hope. You know, there are times with Mortal Kombat, for people like me who are very much a mediocre fighter player but enjoy them so much, it cut down on the frustration level. But it's, you know, you're getting good at Shaq Fu, so it all depends on what what your outlook is on the game.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's all I got to say about gameplay. You got anything else to add?
No. I think it's I guess final thought would be that it's I've seen worse. It's definitely in the middle, not as horrible as people paint it out to be. But we'll revisit that in the next section, I think.
Yeah, there are definitely worse fighters, because when I played it, it was like a week or two ago, my buddy actually showed me another game called Art of Fighting, and that game was god awful. The sprites were, you know, just carbon copy, or, you know, not carbon copies, but they're just paper cutouts, so they barely moved, and I got my butt kicked on the first freaking fighter.
That's an SNK game, guys, by the way. A Neo Geo.
And, like, yeah, that game was just far worse than Shaq Fu was, so I was just completely shocked. Another one that I played recently was Double Dragon 5. And
oh, I remember that, yeah.
And that one, it was a little bit better because, something I forgot to say about Shaq Fu was the jumping is horrendous. You jump forward and you're going to go like three-quarters of the screen or something, so.
I need to go back.
So, yeah. The jump, but yeah, Double Dragon 5, they did actually get the jumping down better, but that was another one where I just couldn't get past the first character unless I moved the difficulty down, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, was Shaq Fu the worst thing ever? I'm shocked to say it wasn't.
And I would agree with that. I can defend the SNK games, and I can give you reasons why I like Art of Fighting and and Totem Lord doesn't. But honestly, I kind of see where he's coming from. There are certain games that are more based on technique, as opposed to Shaq Fu, which is really more it's based on promoting a basketball star, basketball player. For that, it's cream of the crop, man. I mean, it's way better than it should be, I would argue. But yeah, it's not. It's definitely in the medium zone, and it's way more adaptable than say the Art of Fighting, which is an early Neo Geo fighting game. So I agree. I don't understand where all the hate came from, honestly. But
Yeah,
yeah,
nowhere near the best game ever, but definitely not the worst. So I guess the hunt goes on for the worst game ever.
we'll find it. I'm the guy that defends ET. So
Well, there you go. Perhaps next time we'll have to do like Superman 64.
that one's pretty bad. I'm gonna have to prepare for that mentally. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's all we got for you today. Thanks for checking us out, and I will judge you next time.